Hi everybody, it's a not so sunny Sunday. We've still got a bit of overcast weather here, so it's a bit rough, but I'm sure it's even worse in Melbourne, so I won't complain. Still reasonably warm, so that's the main thing. But this is my opportunity to have a 3-year review of actually being an owner-occupier in Cairns. In other words, putting down stumps in effect. I've lived here 4 years, but for the last 3 of it actually have owned the flat that I'm living in. So before I actually go ahead with this, I just want to give you a bit of background, and then I'll do a cost of living as a finale for this particular video. A lot of people are very interested in that sort of stuff, but remember, it is a rubbery figure and it pertains to my lifestyle, which isn't the typical Aussie lifestyle for a single guy. I don't have a car for a start, so that makes a big difference. But anyway, we'll move along and I'll give you all the information that I have, and I hope that it's of some use to you. Now, so getting to the background, why I pulled up stumps in Melbourne seems to be a logical place to start. Now, I've been living in a small flat in Melbourne CBD for around a decade and decided it was time for a change. It was in a great location in Flinders Lane in Melbourne City, near Spencer Street. So it was quite a central location, close to shops and transport, perfect for someone working or studying in central Melbourne. However, in my case, I was retired. I actually have worked in Melbourne quite a bit, but of course, as soon as I moved there and buy a flat there, I decided to retire. So it wasn't great timing. And I rarely take advantage of the nightlife there. Not that that's an issue at the moment, given the corona situation, but I'm talking more in the sense of a normal year, and this is anything but a normal year. I also found the lack of living space a little constricting, with noise from neighbours from above and below quite irritating. So I was on the second floor, and it was 7 floors of occupation, so I was surrounded by other tenants on every side, in effect. I had a small balcony with a view of the Rialto building, but that view was compromised as more and more high-rise apartment blocks sprung up around me. So there was quite a building boom that took place in the period that I actually was living in that particular flat, and more and more towers was obscuring my view. The prospect of enduring another long Melbourne winter didn't thrill me either. So I wasn't overly happy with my living circumstances. It had served its purpose. I'd tried it. I'd lived in North Fitzroy prior to that, which is inner suburbs, and I thought I'd give the CBD a go. A lot of people were doing that, and it has its pluses and minuses, but it was time to move on. Now, the place in North Fitzroy, which is a semi-detached house, I'd been there about the same time that I'd been living in the flat, and at about the same time I decided to leave. And that was I call that my 10-year itch, because it was about 10 years in both cases that I'd actually been living at these places and then decided to move on to greener pastures. So what were my relocation options? I mean, I had a few. The world was my pearl, in effect, anywhere in Oz. After some musing, WA and Queensland seemed the best choices. Now, Perth has pretty good weather overall and was affordable after the mining crash had basically ripped the guts out of the local real estate market. Quite a reduction in costs for houses and apartments, so that wasn't such a big deal. It also had great flight connections to Asia, and that's also something that really attracted me, because I love going to Asia. However, it's not always warm and sunny. They do have cold weather in winter. Now, I was there on a miserable August day several years before, and it was as cold and windy as any poxy day in Melbourne. And I kid you not, it was actually, I just had to go touch base with Australia so I could then return to Malaysia. I'd come from Malaysia, thank God I had a wind cheater, because I was wearing shorts, and it was like Melbourne weather. It was terrible. It was a really strong wind, and it was cold. Now, more importantly, though, I really wanted a change from living in a capital city. So Perth really wasn't what I was looking for, although it does have quite a few pluses. So I was left with Queensland as my last option because I did want warmer weather, and obviously Queensland's the place to go for that unless you want to go, say, the Northern Territory. I narrowed it down to two choices, do the tried and true thing and move to either the Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast. I immediately ruled out the Gold Coast as it was pricey and overdeveloped in my opinion. Actually, my mother moved from Melbourne. She went from there to the Gold Coast and lived in a place in the hinterland. Had a house. It was okay, but she eventually got sick of it. She couldn't make too many social connections there and came back to Melbourne and sort of lived in a bohemian centre, which was just in the centre of St Kilda, the main strip. So Lock Street, St Kilda was where the flat was located. So that was very bohemian. So the Gold Coast was out and too overdeveloped, but the Sunshine was a little better, although it was nothing like the place I'd visited as a student in the 70s. I actually haven't been back to the Sunshine Coast since then. I went up with a friend on a student trek up there in his VW. God, it was a long drive. We went as far north as Yeppoon, but we did check out Sunshine Coast, and back then it was quite a lot smaller and probably a lot more affordable. But both of these locations, had the advantage of being close to Brisbane, but it wasn't enough to sway me. And as I say, I'd be paying more for Sunshine Coast as well as Gold Coast, but neither of them really did it for me. So after due consideration, I figured if I'm going to go north, well, I'm going to go the whole hog and go far north. Before taking the plunge, I holidayed in both Port Douglas and Cairns in 2015 for 2 months, so to get a good feel for the area. So Port Douglas was nice, but again a bit pricey, and more importantly lacked infrastructure such as good internet connections, broadband internet. So Cairns, with a population touching 150,000 people, had both the weather and infrastructure of a big city, major retail chains, supermarkets and regional hospitals, and many flight connections. And to top that was remarkably, the rent was reasonably low and there was a decent bus network to get around. Not that I've used the buses much, to be quite frank. I generally walk everywhere. It's brilliant because I've chosen a central location. I don't drive due to poor eyesight. I have a congenital condition passed on to all the males in my family by the females, and it basically means I don't get as much information through my eyes as other people. It's not a focal issue. I just can't see as much detail, so I can't get a driver's license. So basically, I needed to have the option of public transport, and the bus system here is not bad. It's quite extensive and reasonably cheap. So I took the plunge and sold my flat in Melbourne. It was advertised as 2 bedrooms, but the second bedroom was a glorified shoebox in reality. Bought for $212,000 from what I can remember with my withered brain a decade earlier, and I sold it a few years back, about three or 4 years back, for low 300,000. So I made a tidy profit on my flat, so that was good. I think I got near the peak of the market, so I was happy, obviously. And I actually signed the sales document for selling the apartment in Flinders Lane. I actually did it while I was in Vietnam, so that was quite interesting. I was in Saigon, and I actually was emailed the sales document by my agent, my real estate agent, and I signed it and scanned it at a local photocopying place in District 3, Saigon, and emailed it back, and no problem. As long as I had the signature there, it was all fine, all legal. So that was an interesting experience. And actually, the agent was quite good. He really he squeezed out the last few $100 from the buyer. He did the job properly. He actually was a good agent in that respect. Anyway, once the sale had gone through, moving out was a real pain in the ass, but I'm not an island there. Apparently, I had so much accumulated crap I had to dispose of in for such a small place, and it was a real hassle getting rid of everything. It was amazing how much garbage I'd acquired. And they say that moving house is one of the most stressful events in life, and I would have to attest to that personally. I was really freaking out, and it was a huge relief to get it out of the way. Before buying, I rented in Cairns for around a year. First stayed at an Airbnb place just for a week or two in Edge Hill, and then I moved to a dive in McLeod Street, a pretty dodgy sort of place, short-term rent. Stayed there for a few weeks, and then the whole time I was just hectically trying to find a rental property, and it wasn't easy. I did, as a homeowner, I had no idea what it was like renting, and I got a real reality shock. So I was happy to get out of the place after finally securing a long-term rental in Parramatta Park after applying for numerous apartments. I really did, and because I didn't have a sufficient income, even though I had plenty in the assets, it just didn't seem to matter. They don't care about assets. It's just all income. I really had very little choice of places to get, and I had to settle for a one-bedroom apartment. I was incredibly relieved to get it though, because I thought I wasn't going to be able to do it and going to have to work out some sort of more casual approach to get to having accommodation. An absurd situation, because I would have thought I'd be one of the safest bets as far as renting's concerned. I've got an impeccable credit rating, but none of that seems to matter. It's an insane world we live in. So basically, that was my exposure to the Cairns rental jungle, and I'm not sure if it's improved that much now. I would have thought it would because of the corona situation, because the Airbnbs have dried up and these people are now trying to rent out long term. But apparently it's still pretty tight up here for rents, so it's not good. In any case, I couldn't rent a really good property, as I just mentioned, so I had no other choice but to buy. Plus the fact, I'm a bit of a control freak. It's nice to own my own place and be able to do stuff to my own place, which of course I've made some minor renovations since moving in. My two preferred locations to buy in Cairns were Parramatta Park or adjoining suburbs to the CBD fringe. Or the other option was Trinity Beach, which is one of the northern suburbs, which is east of Smithfield, which is a big shopping commercial area and suburb. The good thing about Cairns is you can take your time looking over a variety of places, and I spent a month or two hunting for my place. Trinity Beach is a lovely place to live, plenty of greenery and a compact beach boasting a pub with a great sea view. There's also a number of dining outlets along the beach strip. I saw several suitable properties, but none that really ticked all the boxes for me. Saw a really nice two-bedroom apartment, but the body corporate fees were on the really high side, as there was a site manager, and that really pushed it right up. I think it might have been about $5 or $6 grand per annum, and I thought, gee, with ongoing costs like that, it's a real disincentive for me, because I don't need an on-site manager. We don't have one here. There's no problems. It's just a luxury you don't need. Anyway, I also encountered high body corporate fees closer to town. I looked at a few places that were actually to the north of where I am now, just in the same vicinity, close to Parramatta Park or around there, but they were all about 240, 250,000. Although there was pressure for the sellers to actually reduce their prices. That was happening while I was looking, so that was interesting in itself. I saw a couple of reasonable places, but they're a little further from the centre. I wanted to be close to where the shopping was and whatever. You've got to think practically as well as the aesthetics. I settled on the apartment I'm living in due to its low asking price, just above 200,000, which is incredibly cheap when you're used to the Melbourne prices. This is for a two-bedroom place, and coupled with low body corporate fees, similar to what I was actually paying in Melbourne. I was also about the same distance to town as the place I was actually currently renting, which was also in Parramatta Park in Martin Street. It was about a 15 to 20 minute walk into the city. Compared to the flat I owned in Melbourne, it was an absolute bargain. like I say, twice the size, literally twice the size, and about around a little less than 2/3 the cost. So yeah, that's you get huge bang for your buck. I moved in August 2017, and this is my 3rd anniversary. The kids in the creche downstairs drive me crazy occasionally, as you'd know if you watch any other videos. But overall, it's a fairly quiet place here to live. So it's quite reasonable. I've got no major complaints. I had a noisy neighbour, but they've shut up since I complained to the body corporate about it. So that's good. That's unusual. It's really unusual to have people playing music all night. Now, did I make the right move leaving Melbourne? Well, I think you probably know the answer to that, but it is an emphatic yes. I definitely made the right move. An opinion only reinforced by the recent corona lockdowns down south. I mean, I'd hate to think what my mental state would be if I was still in that tiny flat in the middle of the Melbourne CBD, watching the value of the flat dropping like a stone each month, which I think probably is happening. And there's nothing to do in the CBD because everything's locked down. I mean, just horrible, worst of all worlds. And you've got winter to contend with, which drags on forever. It feels like it anyway. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.